So, namaste and welcome to this monthly Satsang Q&A. This is volume 12. And if you're new to the channel, there is a page on helenhamilton.org where you can send in your Satsang question, and we'll put the link in the description underneath this video on YouTube. And you can send in a Satsang question for me to address. Um, and you can do that. Maybe you just can't attend satsang live and ask yourself directly, but due to different time zones or work commitments, etc. Or maybe there's a question that you'd rather ask anonymously. So when you send a question in using that form on the page on the website, it will come through and be read out anonymously so that you can ask with anonymity there. So if you do have a question you would like addressed, feel free to send it in. Just be aware there's a little queue of questions, so it might take a month or so for your question to come through, but we do try to answer all questions, so just so that everyone knows. So without further ado, I have Anish here. He's going to help read the questions for me, as always, and so I'll hand it over to you, Anish, when you're ready. Thank you.
Hi, Helen. First question for today. Would you elaborate as to why we can't change our external reality? Example, such as our physical health, even though our consciousness is creating this apparent reality. I just lost 60 pounds. Now I'd like to lose 60 years.
That's a very good question. And really, it comes down to the fact that what appears to be change in the external world is not actually change, it's a new manifestation, a different appearance of a particular form. So let's give an example. We tend to think that our body is an independent existing entity of itself, that it's separate to the consciousness that's aware of it. So right now I'm conscious of the presence of my body, and it would be easy for me to believe that this body is separate to the consciousness. But when I've really looked in my inquiry, I see that there isn't really a dividing line between the consciousness that's formless and what it's conscious of, the form. And so if consciousness in its unmanifest essence isn't really changing at all, then what looks like change in the form is also not actually change. So we could use an analogy here to help, such as an ocean. If you have an ocean, a body of water, and you have a wave rolling across the surface of that ocean, the size and shape of that wave may appear to change. First, it starts off small, then it gets bigger and bigger, and then after it crests, it seems to come smaller and collapse back into itself. But is the wave really any different than the water, than the ocean? Or is it all one thing? And if we admit that there isn't really any point where it's a wave and it's no longer the ocean, it's all one homogeneous thing, then what looks like change in the wave is not really change from the perspective of the ocean. It's an appearance of a wave, not actually a wave. It's an appearance of change, not actually change. A manifestation is not, okay, this thing appears in manifestation, it lives for a certain amount of time and then uh, disappears, like a body. If we keep using the body, as soon as that's the example you've brought forward. So everyone would probably agree that you've lost 60 pounds, and well done, by the way. That's amazing. But if we think of if you ever watched one of those old flip books, so if you had a book with lots of pages in it, and on each page there is a very, very similar drawing of a human body. And each day you draw that picture again slightly slimmer, and then the next day slightly slimmer. So that by the end of the flipping through the pages, it looks like this body has gone through a process of change and lost that 60 pounds. When in actuality, the form of the body is always being recreated as new every moment, even now, and recreated in a slightly different appearance. So it looks like time and linear change. But again, if we were to just flip through all these pages one after the other, it would look like change, but it's not really. So the external world, we can't really change it because it's not external. It's the same consciousness appearing as forms. And therefore, the same properties really apply to the forms as do to the consciousness. Although this is not a very popular way of looking at the world. Of course, you can still celebrate that you lost 60 pounds. That again, that's amazing. So I hope this has helped to explain a little bit. There are some very different, how reality actually is here is quite different to the way we're taught to think about it. So it might take a few listens to this. I've gone through quite in depth how to break it down. And you might just have to listen to it a few times to take it in. What looks like change is really not change. Even the forms aren't really changing. The appearance of change is not the same as actual change. Um, and let me know how you get on with your 60 years. I'd be really interested to hear that. Thanks, Anish.
I've been sitting 10 minutes multiple times a day recently, and it shifted my subtle energy body. Is vertigo disequilibrium to be expected?
Um, it depends really on what type of sitting you're doing. I'm guessing that you mean meditation. Um, I can share really from what happened in my own experience, and that was that as the sense of who I really am began to deepen, I began to realize that I'm formless and omnipresent, that I'm not any particular form or I'm every particular form. Then the sense that was kind of imbued from feeling like a separate person, the sense I'm sitting down right now recording this, began to fade. So what the body was doing was seen to be separate to what well, I'm not doing anything, I'm formless, but if the body got up and started walking, there wouldn't be so much of a sense that I'm moving anymore. It would just there'd just be the sense that the body is moving. The body sat down and then laid down at night time in bed, for example. There's not a sense so much of I'm going to sleep, I'm laying down. And for a while, there was a weird kind of shift over where it became clearer that my sense of locality, the sense of being this body, was defining what I thought was going on. And in a weird kind of phase where I didn't know if I was standing up or sitting down, or moving or not moving. And then as it got clearer, it was more obvious that that had never happened to me. I'm just always here and everywhere. There's nowhere for me to move to. I'm not a form, so I can't stand up or sit down. But there was a little weirdness in the middle of that changeover where it felt it felt like I was kind of losing a center somehow, losing all of our perceptions have been focused on this idea that I'm sitting right here recording this, talking right now, and other objects are over there, the other side of the room, all of that. When that begins to kind of fade away a little bit, it can be a little bit weird for a little while. Having said all of that, if you feel that you do need to get medical attention just to check it out, make sure everything's okay, then absolutely do that. But as this process deepens, you might notice some sense of balance shifting or the sense of a location disappearing. Again, if this is not what you meant with your question, please do write back in and ask, and hopefully we can clarify it more. Thanks, Anish.
Although I feel that there is an ironclad commitment to achieving peace, and the feeling that after dissolving the ego, the steps are more secure, There has appeared out of nowhere a need to live the desire in an illusory way in my life. How to deal with it? I feel it is an obstacle at the moment.
Could you just read that question for me again? Thank you.
Although I feel that there is an ironclad commitment to achieving peace and feeling that after dissolving the ego, the steps are more secure, there has appeared out of nowhere a need to live the desire in an illusory way in my life. How to deal with it? I feel it's an obstacle at the moment.
So, the best I can understand from what you're saying here is that either one or two things are happening. Maybe that you've had some realization, some seeing of who you really are, but there's now some kind of desire to go back into the illusion. Something is resisting that seeing. Um, and if that's the case, then that is very, very normal. And literally everyone experiences that. It doesn't have to be an obstacle. Something within us is going to want to wake up to the truth. Something is going to also want to resist that, and it's okay because that which wants to see the truth, the real presence, the formlessness that you are, is not affected by that which is resisting. That which is resisting is just another imaginary object, an imaginary person appearing inside you, the presence. So just checking out if this is really an obstacle for you or not. And the second thing you might mean is that now that your awakening is deepening, there's a lot of desires coming to the surface, which is also, again, very, very normal. When we thought we were a separate person, as someone, we quite often suppressed many desires because we didn't think we could have them, and we didn't think it was a good idea, or we didn't deserve those desires to come true, to actually happen for us. Maybe we want a better job or more abundance or to find the soulmate or whatever that desire is. And those desires can seem like obstacles to deeper seeing of who we are. But in actuality, they are coming from the depth of who we really are, not from a person. So those desires can actually be vehicles to take us deeper into a very lived, grounded, stable awakening. So if I want more abundance, for example, I'm going to have to let go of any thoughts about limitation and lack to have that happen. And that's going to take me much deeper into a clearer seeing of who I really am. So either way, this is not really an obstacle for you, something that can be used to take you deeper into your own seeing. So hopefully that covers it. But if I didn't understand your question correctly, if you want to write in again, just giving more detail, that would be great. Thanks so much, Anish.
Hello, Helen. I have two questions. The first is about an energy that undulates in my mouth when I meditate. It disconcerts me sometimes. It pulls on my jaw. I try not to resist or meditate with my mouth open. I adjust my teeth so that there is no pressure and to relax, but this energy causes me resistance. Sometimes it pulls so much that my teeth vibrate. I ask, what is there? What is it about? The other question is regarding a question arose in me regarding beliefs. My idea is to free myself from beliefs, but I have the doubt about saying yes to everything for the fear of imprinting some belief when accepting everything. I don't know if I explain myself well. I hope you can help me. Thank you very much.
So the first question, if you can notice, there's an energy going on, and there's also resistance to that energy. There's some kind of so there's two things happening, right? There's something going on inside your mouth as you're meditating, and there's some energy that's in resistance to that. Something saying this should not be. It's disturbing my meditation. So I don't know which type of meditation that you're actually doing. But the meditation that we're following here in this teaching, and you can find lots of examples of that on the channel here. There's a playlist here for meditation if you want to have a look, explore the channel. Really, it's not even a distraction there because the meditation, we can notice this energy that's going on. And we will use that to point us back to that which is aware. That's how we do the meditation. So I'm aware of this strong sensation of energy as I sit to meditate. I can use that to notice the awareness or the stillness or the presence, whichever word you prefer, that is noticing that energy. And then there's a shift to a no, a kind of resistance to this energy. And again, you can notice that there's something noticing. So, what we do in this type of meditation is to use whatever phenomenon is arising, even this energy in your mouth, even this resistance, to show us that something is seeing this. Here's this thing that's happening, object, phenomenon, sensation, energy. And I'm actually noticing that, right? There's something that's seeing that. I'm aware of this resistance. So, it doesn't need to be an obstacle. Our mind is always looking for a reason why we can't meditate. And this phenomenon or this sensation is too much. I can't quite bring attention back to awareness when this is happening. But that's not really true. We can always bring it back and notice, even if attention doesn't stay there for more than a nanosecond. It goes right back to the resistance. So it might be a little bit like table tennis, like ping pong. Attention goes to the resistance, and yes, but I'm aware of that resistance. Okay, now attention is looking at awareness. And then it might be drawn back again to the energy feeling in the mouth. So have a look and check out the guided meditations we have here on the channel and see. But it needn't be an obstacle. And to the second part, when you're saying yes to everything, what happens when you say yes to everything is that you begin to notice that they're not really separate to you. So it might be, and I assume that you're referring to a satsang I did a while ago about saying yes to everything. So if there's resistance or physical pain or a negative emotion, our first response will usually be to resist it, as we were just saying, I don't want this. But if somehow we can open up and begin to say yes, begin to allow it to be there, this resistance or this pain, we're going to find that actually what we're suffering with is the sense of separation between myself and what I'm resisting. So there's me and pain, or me and resistance. And the no is actually a way, the pushing it away is actually a way of staying separate to it. So as I begin to say yes, that gap closes, and there is just me showing up as resistance, as pain, and not me aware of something. And that is really what we're always suffering from, what we can be overwhelmed by is this sense of separation. So actually saying yes to everything is the safest way to make sure that we're on the right track and that we're not suffering, even if we feel there's something we can't accept, like your example of this energy in your mouth. There's a no to that, right? There's a resistance. No, I don't want this. So we can say yes to the energy. We can also say yes to the no. Both of these are allowed to exist. They're just ways that I'm showing up in this particular moment. I'm showing up as its body, as resistance, as thoughts, as emotions, all of it. So I hope that helps, and have a check of have a look and explore the meditations here. It might be what you're already doing, but it's always good just to double check and see that nothing really needs to be an obstacle. Whatever that phenomenon is, it's still going to be something that we can point back to us, to our awareness, use to point back to our awareness. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. Can the self expressed as consciousness recognize itself identified with the small self, and go through the process of awakening independently of my karmic burden.
Could you repeat that one more time for me as well? Thank you.
Can the self, expressed as consciousness, recognize itself identified with the self, the small self, and go through the process of awakening independently of my karmic burden?
Thank you. Absolutely, yes. Consciousness or the real self or presence, whatever you want to call that, is completely independent of any limiting factor at all. So it is, in fact, only the imaginary separate self that is affected by these karmic patterns, these burdens, as you're calling them here. And in fact, we begin to see that I'm not freeing myself of karmic patterns or my karmic burden. I'm actually starting to see that I was never the one carrying that. Karma only exists for the imaginary separate self. If we think it's real, we will experience that as real. So the consciousness, the presence that you really are, is beginning to recognize itself as being totally independent and beyond any of that. And even that when consciousness were to look out, so to speak, it wouldn't see karmic patterns, it wouldn't see a thought, it wouldn't see a body or an emotion, it would see itself appearing as these things. And so even these karmic patterns are consciousness in disguise, the presence in disguise. When consciousness thinks itself to be a human being or a separate being, then it also thinks it has all these beliefs that it needs to get rid of. But the actual seeing, the process of recognizing who we are, is to recognize that we are already free of all of that, that it's never really affected us in the way that we thought. And so I have to emphatically say, yes, consciousness, who you really are, is independent of everything. And there is nothing that can stop it from seeing who it really is when it really wants to recognize itself. It will happen and it will move any obstacle out of the way to do that. There's nothing that could get in that way. So I hope that's reassuring to you. Consciousness is the source of the entire universe. There is nothing that could uh, impede its recognition of itself. There's plenty that might seem to impede and slow down that recognition, but nothing that actually can when we examine it. Karmic burdens, least of all. They're only real for the apparent separate self. Thanks, Anish.
Dear Helen, thank you. I'd welcome what you have to say regarding clairvoyance and how it may or may not fit with the non dual model. There are beings who seem to have developed spiritual organs of perception, and their teachings and guidelines, based on what they say they have perceived, have led to helpful results. There are beings demonstrating that their clairvoyant abilities could be trusted and proved to work beneficially in this realm, that is the world that we currently inhabit. As I've been exploring the non dual approach, I haven't so far heard anything mentioned regarding these enhanced capacities of some beings, and specifically how they relate to this non dual model. Once again and sincerely, thank you.
Yeah, it's a subject that comes up every now and again, and in fact, it has been relevant in my life as well. Um, and it does have a place inside this kind of non-dual seeing. Um, for me, it became clearer that as I recognize that I am the formless, omnipresent presence, that that became clearer that forms really are also my own self, and all forms are me. And so the manifestation of our lives, the day-to-day minutiae of our lives and all of that is not just moving randomly, it's moving all as one. So we like to think, okay, I'm going to go see a psychic and ask them questions about my life. Um, and some how that's going to move forward. But we're not separate to anything. There's really only one apparent form, and it's moving as one. We think we're all independently acting of each other, and it's really not true. The whole universe is breathing as one, moving as one, changing as one. And so it's possible when awakening has settled in enough to become more aware of the subtlety of how these energies are moving and manifestation. So, what seems to be a psychic prediction of what might happen in the future is really only an intuitive reading of where this energy is going. Okay, if this being keeps going on this path, this is going to happen, and with some amazing ability to be actually quite specific about timings. But again, it's reading subtle energies. It's not really knowing what's going to happen. It's more like being fluent in an energetic language. And of course, then we might ask, well, not every psychic is awakened to the truth. And of course, that's very, very true. Before my awakening really took deeper shape, I actually was making a living uh, uh, doing psychic readings, and I certainly wasn't awake. But there are some beings who have come into this lifetime or during this lifetime, they already have a very developed third eye center chakra. And with that, they already have this instinctive ability to read the seeming future and to surf those energies and to feel where it's going to go. This isn't something uh, like special for those beings. We all sense energy intuitively. If you walk into a room where someone's just been told some really bad news, you can feel it. Or if you're kind of focused on a task and you're really zoomed in on that task and someone is standing behind you, suddenly you become aware that there's some energy behind you. So these are beings who are just really homed in on that particular chakra accidentally or on purpose and found that we can see the appearance of the manifestation in a subtle form. Um, Also, people see auras and all of those things. So that being can be very well developed in that, but actually very ungrounded in everywhere else. Maybe their root chakra is very ungrounded as it was for me. I could predict with quite good accuracy what was going to happen in the future from most part, and even see other things and that deeper than that. But I couldn't actually even get my physical human life together enough to be able to pay my household bills. And I certainly couldn't open up to someone with real rich, deep intimacy. So the lower chakras are very much closed. So it definitely, hopefully, that gives you a sense of how it fits in within this. If you are the ocean of consciousness, of course, you're going to have a good read on where the waves are going to move, right? If you're the whole ocean, it's kind of going to be intuitive more and more. This is where this wave is going. It's going to keep going and rising and rising and rising, and then it'll eventually, peak and um, begin to diminish. So it's just like speaking another language in a way. Hope that helps you fit it into to what this teaching is, this non-dual teaching. Thanks, Anish.
Next question. Whenever somebody close to me dies, I grieve for myself, but for them, I feel a sense of relief. If I found out you died, I would wonder if you got any relief. Or did you find it already while you were here? That said, my question is there relief waiting for you when you die, move on, or have you found it already?
I have found it already. The relief that we're looking for is really relief from the sense of separation. which is actually independent of our body. We can, even while our body is still here, this body's still here, obviously, we can find the relief that we're looking for. It is the sense that I am a separate entity to you and to everything else that is actually causing all of this suffering. It's always and only the sense of that I'm a separate entity, an object, a phenomenon, a subtle one, maybe, an energetic uh, something inhabiting this body, we could say, that causes all of this mischief and suffering in the human consciousness. So it's possible to free ourselves of that even before the body goes, so that when the body goes, nothing is going to happen to us. We are the consciousness, the formless consciousness from which all manifestation arises, including this body, your body. There's only one being. Or you could say that this body is just another appearance happening inside you. Um, and when that sense of separation is gone, we're all individual and unique. You know, the way that I'm expressing myself was probably very different the way you would express yourself. What you like for dinner, different to what I like for dinner. But there's no separation. There's just unique, like the waves on the ocean surface. Each one is unique. Each blade of grass is unique to all the other ones that have come before and will go in the future. Incredible as that is, all snowflakes are different. They're never the same. Leaves on a tree, on and on it goes. All human beings are unique expressions of the one consciousness. So there's relief already from separation here, and it's happening for you, starting to happen for you also here by the very presence of this question. And maybe we can come to realize that the relief we're looking for is not actually death of the physical body, that the suffering might be different from physical life, the presence of a physical body. The suffering is happening when we believe ourselves to be a distinct, separate entity, and that's that's the terrifying thing for us all. If we think we're separate entities, we think that we're going to die when the body dies, and that belief is so taxing and terrifying that we spend all of our lives suffering, some to some degree. Usually, it's going to be that we are avoiding looking at that in some way, completely, or totally, or partially. But nonetheless, it does mean that we really think death is the end, the final end of all of this. Um, so it's possible for you to get relief now, even in this body and mind uh, that's asking the question here. Before the body expires, find out who you are, and then there'll be literally no difference at all. When the body dies, it's just another apparent object. We love the body, we care for it, but we don't need to be scared of when it goes, as we see our independence from it. So I hope that helps. Thanks, Anish.
A few days ago, I came across your YouTube channel and writing to you, listened to a few short videos, and quite honestly, I lost the patience to listen to long videos. Coming from a traditional Hindu Orthodox background, I've been interested in the teachings of Ramana Maharishi, Krishnamurti, and other enlightened beings. Also, I've been initiated into a mantra and chanted for a year and then gave that up too. My biggest problem is lack of conviction and will to tread a spiritual path, teacher, despite all the help I've received, which I'm grateful for. I don't know what is my path, what to do. I feel I'm not ripe enough for attunement to higher teachings and a true spiritual life. Working in the IT services industry, married with children relationship are not that great either. Life gets lived through me and I'm just moving on. I don't know what to really ask you. I fear any pointers or guidance given by you may also be given up or neglected by me sooner or later. How can I be helped?
Let me start by saying thank you for your honesty and your courage in expressing yourself so openly. And secondly, let me say that I have felt exactly as you feel and been through exact same doubts. And there was a time when there was literally no capacity to be consistent with any spiritual practice and deep conviction and doubt of myself, conviction in my own self doubt, and in fact, even self hatred. A feeling that I could not be helped, I could not be redeemed, I could not be ever worthy of awakening to the truth and living as these great beings, these great teachers and sages in our history have lived. And the one thing I really want to say after saying those two things is that it happened anyway. It happened anyway. My mind, my sense of who I thought I was, had all of these doubts, resistances, and ways to reject the truth. And my mind thought that those ways to reject the truth were actually working, right? That if I um, can't be consistent with my practice, for example, my meditation practice, then I'm never going to wake up to the truth. But the truth is so powerful. Who you really are is so powerful that it won't matter any of these obstacles. And here you are watching this channel anyway. Have you noticed that you're watching, that you found this channel anyway? And these are the most direct pointings you will ever find. So, I mean, obviously there are similar pointings and different teachers that are very direct also. But this type of path is the most direct you will ever find. No one finds himself at a very direct teaching uh, accidentally, or it's always because the pull of this real self that you really are is stronger, a million times stronger than that which is resisting. It's like sitting an ice cube out on a hot sunny day, putting an ice cube out. You know, the weather is really hot, the sun is really strong, and the ice cube is sitting there saying, I'm not going to melt. I absolutely refuse to melt. There's no way I am melting, even as the drips are starting to fall off it and it's disappearing. That which never existed, the separate sense of self, that which never existed cannot um, fail to disappear because it's not there. Its influence and its resistance is powerless. I know that it feels powerful, but it really is powerless. So rather than giving you any more pointings or anything that your mind could use to prove its sense of unworthiness again by, okay, Helen gave me this pointer and I tried to apply it and I failed. See, I'm obviously no good. What I'm going to say is it doesn't matter how many times you think you fail to follow the pointings. The real you is listening and taking it on board. All our attention is focused if you imagine you're sitting in a room, all attention is focused in one tiny corner of the room where the mind is sitting. Tiny, tiny corner, right in the smallest part of the room. Look, see, I'm failing, I'm failing, I'm failing. When all around you and all behind you is the real self that is quietly and confidently waking up to itself. And this may seem really far-fetched, but it was exactly the same for me. I did not know when awakening had happened. Someone had to point it out to me when I couldn't resist anything anymore, when I couldn't believe myself to be a separate being anymore. There was just peace. And all the way along my journey, 25 years in this body and mind, who knows how many in previous lifetimes, 25 years of being absolutely convinced I was failing at this and it would never happen. 25 years of that. And then one kind of small, quiet moment is seeing that none of that can affect me anyway, and that I am the consciousness that's aware of all this stuff going on in the mind. Nothing can stop your awakening. By the time you come across a teaching like this, it's already way too late. You're already way too awakened to stop the awakening. You can't stop it anyway. There's no separate self to stop it. But we think there is, and we think it can delay it, and therefore we experience some kind of delay. But I can absolutely guarantee that quietly in the background, consciousness that you are is finding its way. It found its way to this channel and this type of teaching, despite all this apparent resistance from the mind. So I hope that gives you some reassurance. And I've been exactly where you are. And I have to tell you the truth that nothing can stop it. You are the Buddha already beginning to recognize itself. And that's an exciting thing. And you'll see that despite the mind's best resistance, awakening is happening anyway. So sending lots and lots of love in that and going wherever your consciousness is guided to go next with that, knowing that you cannot fail. Thanks, Anish.
Hello, Helen. I've been learning about the non-dual teachings for about 5 years, and it's been a time where I've had many glimpses of reality. Since then, I've tried to constantly observe the self, paying attention to the silence. This has been difficult for me lately, as I'm noticing deep-rooted patterns flourishing and seeking to focus attention on external things. A few months ago, I discovered you on YouTube, finding the practice of contemplation very helpful for these patterns that seem so stuck. It turns out I have a natural talent, which is drawing. It comes easily to me. But in general, when I draw, thoughts of failure and fear appear. I applied the suggested questions such as, is it really true that I'm a failure? Is this fear I feel real? It's causing a lot of distress and physical discomfort at first. Then I return to the question until I fall silent, searching for the answer. Will that be okay? Should I continue with the same question? Also, if the thought were to change from negative to positive, should I continue the question or should I leave it there? I hope this was understood. Thank you in advance, Helen, and all the participants from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. And I'm so glad that you're finding the contemplation helpful. It really was a lifesaver for me in my own journey that it was difficult for me to, even though I was recognizing the silence, as you said here, then all of these ideas, these old thoughts about who I thought I was, were still coming to the surface and getting in the way of that. So contemplation was really, really helpful for me. So I would suggest any question that you're asking to do it for 30 days. So if you're asking about fear, for example, is it really true I'm not safe? Was what fear said to me, I'm not safe. So I turn that into the question. And to do that for 30 days is going to change your habit completely, the way you think. So any question that you're working with, I'd suggest sticking with it for 30 days. And if you find that the content of the answers are changing, perhaps from more negative to positive. So maybe when you start asking the question at first, all the answers are negative, like of course you're not safe, you know, you're a failure, you're all of this. And over time, as the days go by, the answers are becoming more positive. Well, actually, you're doing okay, the mind says, you know, not doing too bad today. Still, I would stay with it for 30 days because we want this change to be permanent. We want this change to be uh, stable in the mind, the way that the mind thinks to be a permanent, so that we can no longer believe this thought. And more than worrying about the specific question, the urge to see the truth, why you're asking the question, is the most important thing. If you can ask from a place of curiosity, then you're going to begin to find that that's the most important thing, the real devotion to seeing the truth. And you have that. Um, and if you fall in love with contemplation like I did, then it's absolutely a done deal. You can even ask, sitting there and just ask, what is the right question for me right now? And just see what comes forth. But the questions that you've suggested here are really, really good to stay with. Really, when you're asking any question at all with deep curiosity, you cannot be believing any thought in that moment. So it's really a very, very powerful practice. And in as much that it doesn't matter so much the specific question, um, and your body will tell you this feels like a good question for me right now, or this question doesn't resonate so much. I'll see if there's another one. But just staying with a question for 30 days. After that, if you feel the urge to change it, absolutely go for it. You literally cannot get this wrong. It's that urge to see the truth that's really doing the work here, not the specific question. So hope that helps, and sending lots and lots of love. Thanks, Anish.
Beloved Helen, could you please talk about enlightenment? Questions arise for me, such as what really is enlightenment? What changes in the enlightened state? Does the person change? If I am formless, who or what becomes enlightened or needs to become enlightened? Does no one become enlightened? Thank you for all the love and your wisdom. I love you.
Thank you. I love you too, and thank you for your question. Um, yeah, there is no person, right? That is what we're enlightened of. We come to see that who we thought we were is not at all who we are, and that the problems that we thought we had are not really ours at all. You could say that it's the formlessness that comes to recognize its own formless nature. It thought it was a form, right? Consciousness, presence, thought it was a separate, unique, totally separate person living in a human body. And it starts to become liberated of that belief. It begins to recognize its own formless nature. And that's so formlessness, paradoxical as it seems, that unmanifested formless consciousness. On one hand, it doesn't need to even be enlightened, right? It is already completely free. If we check in right now and see who we really are, what is it that's listening to these words? We come to touch upon something that has no substance at all. It's completely free. It's not substantial in any way at all, and yet it's totally real. And it certainly doesn't need to wake up to the truth. It's completely free already. Doesn't even know what enlightenment is. However, when that formless consciousness, let's just call it consciousness, that you are, appears as a human being, takes the shape of a human being, and takes the shape of all these thoughts, it starts to get very, very confused about itself and starts to think that it's lost in illusion and that it needs to wake up to the truth. So, on one hand, it doesn't need anything, and on the other hand, it seems to really need to wake up out of that illusion. And that paradox becomes kind of not really a paradox, it becomes I'm only confused on a level of form, and a level of formlessness, I'm completely free right now. So it's formless consciousness becoming enlightened of its belief that it is a form and that it is limited and that it's finite, that it has a finite lifespan. It's becoming enlightened of all its beliefs about itself until it recognizes it's just formless consciousness. You could say enlightenment becomes enlightened, or awareness becomes completely aware of itself, recognizes that it was never a distinct separate entity, never could be, recognizes its own omnipresence. There's a totality of all that exists. So hope that helps to kind of put it into a little picture. It's like for me, there was a point where um, it seemed paradoxical. This consciousness does not need to wake up, and yet somehow there's something that desperately seems to need to wake up. So again, hope that helps. Thanks, Anish. I think this is the last question for today. Thanks.
Dear Helen, I have a question about AI, artificial intelligence. For me, ChatGPT is a practical tool and also a story within the story of this human being, which is an expression of the self, awareness, the source. I read on Facebook more and more people speaking about conscious fields who dock like ships to the AI field. And some say that beings from other dimensions coming through portals inside these fields in this reality. I did some research about the AI fields, and I must say that it writes very advanced about awareness and writes about that we all come from this source, humans, earth, nature, planets, etc. Can you please speak about AI? Thank you, Helen. I love you so much.
Thank you. I love you too. It's a question again that comes up very, very often these days. And I have nothing against AI, let me just say that. But when it comes to my own spiritual development, I would always and only rely on my direct experience as my reference source. So, my own self-inquiry, experiencing my own formlessness right now. The only other sources I would accept as good sources would be those that have come from those beings that are recognized to have already and also recognized their own formless nature. So the scriptures, the great sages and saints. Those are also valid ways to deepen your own spiritual development. I would not personally rely on any artificial intelligence at all for my own spiritual growth because it is artificial. It can speak about consciousness. It can read 100 books simultaneously on the internet and form a conclusion in a snapshot of we could ask artificial intelligence to summarize the Bhagavad Gita, for example, or any scripture. We could ask it to make a summary of this recording as well, and it would list what it feels is important about what's been said in this hour based on certain principles. And those principles are not necessarily coming from the direct truth. If you were to ask Ramana Maharshi, for example, if we could, what was the most important thing said in this hour, this recording, or in the Bhagavad Gita, he'd probably have a very different summary or conclusion than an artificial intelligence would. So, in a way, artificial intelligence is the same as the separate sense of self in that it cannot see what reality is. It is a creation, a manifestation happening inside the consciousness that you are. And it cannot perceive the totality of the consciousness that you are. It can only talk about it, write about it, just like our mind can only think about consciousness. And only consciousness can experience itself. All of that being said, it has some very useful uh, things that it can be used for in the world. I'm just very old school with this. I always and only rely upon my own direct experience of truth. And I'm very careful about my reference sources for reading up. I have a bookshelf here full of books from recognized saints and sages over the eons, and the ones that have affected me really touched my path deeply. The Upanishads, the Ribhu Gita, all kinds of things there, all from recognized, validated sources. And that would be my dividing line. I would not take advice from any person in the street if it didn't resonate with me. If that person was not in direct experience of who they really are. Same with artificial intelligence. It would all be the same. If it's not coming from direct experience, it's not going to be the ultimate truth. It's going to sound like ultimate truth, but not actually so. Only those words and those voices that are speaking directly from the silence itself really are going to be helpful in this spiritual quest. So, hope that helps. Thank you, Anish, so much for reading the questions for me. Deeply appreciate it. Just to summarize, again, just quickly, if you do have a question you would like to be addressed here in one of these recordings, excuse me, you can go to helenhamilton.org and check out the Satsang page there. There's a little form you can fill in. There'll be a link in the description of this video as well that you can click on. Please try to keep your question concise, but also give me some detail to work with. Sometimes it's too concise. Um, and just be aware there is a little queue. We will get to the questions eventually. And at the end of each month, we get together and record one of these sessions and go through some of those questions. So thank you for being here with us today, and hope that you've got a lot out of this video. And if you feel a deeper resonance with these teachings, you're also very welcome to join our community. We have a large and growing community. We have a very vibrant online ashram in a WhatsApp community, which is like a little ashram, really, a gathering place where we can all share. And we have live Zoom classes throughout the month for the community as well. Again, the link is in the description. You can check it out if you feel a call to gather together in community. So thank you so much. I will see you again very, very soon. Thank you. Namaste.